Hi, thanks for joining this pre-recorded session at the KL 2025 conference. I'm Dr. Michael Mills, the Associate Senior Vice President of Equitable Access and Student Success at Montgomery College, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Dr. Sonia Pranita Hernandez, who is our Office of Learning Recognition and Advancement Director. And today we're going to talk about how Montgomery College has built its Credit for Prior Learning program brick by brick, basically from scratch. It's been an intense year and a half process for us, but we want to share what we went through, what lessons we learned, what obstacles we overcame, in hopes that it'll help you develop your process and your program at your institution. Montgomery College is a 2-year public community college located in Montgomery County, Maryland, right outside Washington, D.C. We have 3 campuses, several educational centers, and have a number of students who have been looking for CPL credit, and we didn't really have anything formalized. And so today you'll hear how we've implemented that process, what we went through, and some of the partnerships. Developing these strategies required engaging all of our constituents. We had to engage faculty, staff, and students in the process. And Sonia will talk a little bit about that as we go through this presentation. It's also important to note that our work is aligned with our institutional goals. So credit for prior learning is highlighted in our strategic plan for the college. It's also a focal point for our recently adopted academic master plan. And then finally, you'll hear some of the partnerships we've developed in our work. Partnerships across the college, and those partnerships are essential to make sure that the program is sustainable, that it's focused on where it should be focused, and that's in helping our students receive credit for life experiences that they've engaged in outside of the classroom. So with that, let me turn it over to Sonia, who's going to talk about where we've been, why this work is important in Montgomery College, and where we are at the moment. Sonia?
Okay. So just like Dr. Mills said, we have had credit for prior learning at the institution. We've always awarded it. However, it was very focused on AP, IB, CLEP, really the national exams is what we would be looking at. We had some of the military, there was inconsistencies with how the awarding was happening, who was awarding, and how would we track it. There was also limited options for students with credentials, the national credential certifications, industry certifications, and pathways that could really move our students that came in with that experience or those credentials. And so that was our path. There was no one location. Everybody at the institution was just doing a little bit and then sending in for approvals and for awarding of the credit, but really no streamlined, this is how we do it, this is how we award. And so with that, the college really, well, the senior leadership really understood the importance of credit for prior learning. The national research states that there is cost reduction, it saves students time, and these are large. $5,000 is a lot of money for students, 30% reduction in time savings. And then also for institutions that the completion rate of a student receives credit for prior learning, their actual completion rate of completing a degree or certificate is much higher by 25%. And for some of our populations, it can be even higher than that. So this was significant. So to start with, that the senior leadership already had that thought. And so when I came into this, that was for the present was I had some background. I had worked with early childhood, but very small discipline. I also did a lot of this for my dissertation, but again, focused on a very small discipline and how it could work. When I came to Dr. Mills, we did not have an office. he asked that I start looking at a framework that fits our institution. That was the very first. And he had some requirements. He wanted it to be based on research and best practices. And so with that and some more guidance, I started looking at where can I learn more about credit for prior learning and what are the best practices, what to implement to make it college-wide. And so one of the first things that I found was the Council for Adult Education, Adult and Experiential Learning, CALE. And I started doing some of their mini courses, their trainings. And then along with that, I also looked at the veterans. So veterans, the active duty, and plus their families. And so that piece was really important to me coming from a family that is, my husband is retired, a veteran, and I was a spouse. And so those were important personally to me. So looking at what is there for some of the populations we've kind of left out. And it was partnering with the Maryland Veterans and Families, ensuring that Montgomery College was listed, it previously wasn't, and then working with our Combat to College. We have an office here that supports our military veterans. So I needed to ensure that they were on board, they knew who I was and the work that I was doing. And then finally formalizing processes. And this took a lot of work with the support of Dr. Mills and the leadership is really working with faculty, with staff, because we can't forget our campus registrars and transcript evaluators. There's a lot of work that goes on with that. So faculty, chairs, deans, and a lot of the staff to really pilot programs in the spring and try to move credit for prior learning forward in a very standardized way and forms to track and approve students.
Thank you, Sonia. When we were looking at building our program, we identified some success factors that we had to embark on if we were going to do this work the way it should be done, the way we wanted to do it. And the first thing that we identified was a dedicated person to drive this initiative, to really lean into this work. And so Sonia had been part of the team for about a year before we identified the office itself. And that work started in earnest when she was identified as a curriculum innovation and alternative pathways director. And then as we branched out and just created this specialized office, we've changed her title. The other factor that I think is important is to have some administrative champion. And, I truly believe in CPL and believe in the work that Sonia's been doing because I know how important it is for individuals who have life experiences to get credit for those life experiences. Um, Sonia comes from a military family. I have a son who was in the military, and I know the importance of what they do on a day-to-day basis and why it's important that they get credit for the work that they do at our institution. So I think having those leadership champions is absolutely essential to move this work forward. And let's not forget the faculty. None of this work will move forward without faculty buy-in. At Montgomery College, we engage our department deans, our chairs, the program directors, both credit and non-credit faculty, in establishing crosswalks to create the implementation plans to give students credit for their lived experiences. Doing that in isolation is not an option, and it certainly was not an option for us. We needed all of their support. I had mentioned earlier about our strategic alignment, and that was another factor in our success. It has to be rooted in affordability and access to help our students gain the success that they've earned and that they deserve. Um, as Sonia mentioned in an earlier slide, reducing the time to completion is critical for the success of our students. They want that economic mobility, so being able to provide them with credits for work that they've already completed outside of the classroom helps increase their economic mobility moving forward. Um, we also have received support from our Board of Trustees. There have been various updates provided by Academic Affairs leadership to our board on CPL. Our board understands the significance of this work and has been very, very generous in their support. And then finally, the other success factor that we've identified is to make sure that our governance system is aligned with the work that we're doing. So Sonia's been working with our academic regulations committee to ensure that the regs are updated to really comply with not only our internal processes, but also our state mandates. And so working through the academic regs committee allows us to codify and formalize this work. And it's been really, really successful as a result of the work that we've done through our governance system. So when we look at the components of our initiative and how we've attacked this work, there are a couple of things that jump out. One is this crosswalk development process. As Sonia had mentioned, we had departments just providing credit in different ways. There wasn't a tracking system for us to really take a look at and say, okay, we know we're giving credit for X and Y. We didn't have that. So we had to develop this crosswalk development process with faculty to break down courses and programs by competencies and say, okay, students are coming in, they're looking at getting credit for this course. This is what they've done in their previous lived experiences. Can we give the students credit for that course? And that's been an ongoing process, and it's been a successful process. And we're now really diving into moving students from non-credit to credit in that crosswalk process. One of the other things we took a look at is our credit for prior learning website. It didn't really have the information that was necessary for our students to be successful. There weren't guidelines readily available for students to where they could go and get the information that they needed. So we took our guidelines, we put them into a press book and provided that link on our website. And now students know what they can get credit for, what they can't get credit for, what the process is for seeking credit. And it's been really, really successful for us. We've talked a little bit about the academic regs update, just making sure that those policies are clear, that students are aware of those, faculty and staff are aware of those. And Sonia has mentioned the military integration, which has been a big focus of ours throughout this entire process, just making sure that the veterans that we serve receive the credits for their military training. We know how important that is and want to help them make sure that they get the credits that they've earned. So, Sonia, go ahead and tackle the strategic areas.
Okay, so having those comprehensive initiatives, then I was able to break down to 4 strategic areas because you can't take it all on. As Dr. Mills mentioned, we're kind of looking at it piece by piece and doing some pilots. One of the first was really looking at partner agencies, and this is different than the industry. The partner agencies are more of our local, for example, like police academies, the fire academy, then don't necessarily give that national or an industry credential. And so many of our deans, as I went directly to deans and started working with them, they'd had partnerships. And how can we provide credit if there is a student specifically for criminal justice who has completed the police academy? Can we provide them credit for what they have learned and what they have done? And so those were completed through crosswalks. We also did that with the veterans, and that is really working through ACE, the American Council on Education, is really using what they have because they've done a lot of the evaluations, having our faculty go in there and say it aligns, they already have it, we can give them credit. And then the non-credit to credit pathways, this has been one of our most successful, is really looking at what we provide on our non-credit side. Workforce development is what it's sometimes called, but those certificates, those credentials that our non-credit side is working at, and if they complete, can they move to the credit side with actual credits? One of our most successful was networking in Cisco in our IT. They approved actually 12 credits. And I think something important that needs to be stated in here is that when we're doing this non-credit to credit, it is credit faculty. But what I learned very quickly and got approval from Dr. Mills was that we needed a non-credit faculty, that person that's teaching on the non-credit side, to be able to answer questions, provide guidance on the work that they're doing, the exams. And so we've been able to not only collaborate with the credit, but now with the non-credit and bring in those faculty. So our non-credit faculty, the program directors, program managers also have input and can answer questions. And then the last is our national industry certifications. These are extensive crosswalks, literally ensuring that we have documentation of how we lined up courses to those national certifications and that those certifications meet the objectives of the courses. All the work that we're doing, those crosswalks are documented and we're putting them in a file so that we have an actual location where everything is located, all the documents, all the forms that are signed, the approvals and how it was completed. So with that, the collaboration with the partner agencies was one of the ones that has taken a lot of really thought and collaboration with deans because we can't just say we're giving credit to them. It's really partnering with those agencies and then signing MOUs or memorandums of understanding that if a student or if a person completes this, that as Montgomery College, we will give them credit. So right now we're looking at criminal justice, early childhood with actual military child development centers. And one of the reasons we talk quite a bit about military is because where we are located, there is a lot of military families. There's 3 or 4 bases right in our surrounding area. From the location that I'm at, about 6-7 miles, is one of the largest medical hospitals, military medical hospitals. And so that is our population, the students that we are working with. So that's why there was so much focus also on the military and the veterans in this area. And everything that we are doing, we are trying to ensure that there's quality assurance, that everything is documented, that the criteria are the same, whether it's with criminal justice or with early childhood or with our engineering networking, that the standards are being kept the same, that we're looking at the same competencies, that we're evaluating the same way, and that the documentation process can be somebody can go back and actually verify for each one how the process was done and why we will grant or actually decline the credit for prior learning. So the non-credit to credit pathway was very similar. One of the things that we are doing is an internal articulation agreement. One of the concerns is I put up here networking and cybersecurity pathways. Those programs change very fast. And so part of the agreement has been internally is that this will be reviewed every 2 to 3 years. So this is not just an open-ended we're going to give the credit and we're not going to look at it again. So the agreement has been that we will go back and we will look at this in 2 to 3 years to see if that pathway is still viable, that we can give credit. The same with our competency alignment. Right now we have a process that is seamless. We've created and developed documents so that our students can move from non-credit to credit. But again, that is going to be looked at in another 2 to 3 years to see, is it meeting our students' needs? Is it meeting the needs of the credit and the non-credit side? And then finally is student support services. This has a lot to do with Dr. Mills. Dr. Mills has been very involved with the advising at the higher college level and looking at our non-credit students. How do we support them and advise them to move forward? What documents do we need, or what forms do we need to ensure that if they do complete, that the credit side knows that they're receiving it? So that has all been development with our non-credit program directors, program managers, and also ensuring that the faculty on the non-credit side start adding into syllabus and that they themselves know where to send the students for advising and for the support services, which is open to all students here at the college. The collaboration with the Veterans Office has also been extensive. They were one of the first ones when I started here is reach out to them to see how we can support the families and to ensure that the military service members that have completed actual trainings and all this service aren't just getting credit for PE, which is what I was seeing a lot of. Everybody is getting the credit for PE, but there's also other trainings and working and collaborating with that office. How do we support, and then doing trainings with actual Dantes, jumping on whenever I see a webinar, completing training through ACES. How do we use that? How can faculty review? And so this has also been extensive, but the partnerships are what are really critical here. You can't do it alone. You can't move forward without support of not just the faculty, but the staff that are here at the college. With that, we also did the national certifications. So the national certifications are hospitality management. So I will say once this started, we did pilots in the spring, really focusing on, I partnered first with deans that I knew really well and that you were interested in this. So I went to those deans first. So that's how that started with the partnerships. And then I was asked to present at a dean's meeting. And so after that presentation and them hearing from deans that there was collaboration, that we were really working to move this forward, I started being contacted by other deans and chairs and saying, how can we move forward? And hospitality management was one of them, saying, we have national certifications. How can we give credit for those? We know that they align. And so they have done extensive work in the hospitality management. They did some in the spring, and they're currently working on other national certifications. But that's how those partnerships came to be. Those faculty, those deans, the chairs, they're the ones that have the connection to those industry partners. So you have to be able to really work with them, create that relationship with those so that you can, the college, the universities can expand these partnerships with others to give those credit for prior learning for industry. And that opens up very clear pathways for students then. They can look and say, I am going to, I have this certification for hospitality. There's one in HR management. So I have this, I want to go into hospitality management. How can I move forward and what credits will you receive me? This really gives them that career pathway and an opportunity to look and say, how long is it going to take me if you are giving me this credit for prior learning? How long will it take me to complete this program and then maybe move forward, or this is all I need for the job that I'd like to secure or advance in the position where I'm at.
Thank you, Sonia. As we mentioned earlier, part of our work involved revamping our digital infrastructure. And for us, that started with revamping our credit for prior learning website. Uh, our former site was not user friendly. It didn't provide all of the information that was necessary. It was mixed in with a lot of information about transfer agreements and articulation agreements. And it just was confusing to not only students, but also our own faculty and staff. So we spent some time reworking our website so that it provided all of the information that students needed. And we'll provide a link for our website at the end of the presentation. But when you take a look at this website now, it provides the documentation for students. It provides those crosswalks that students can take a look at. And it also includes information about micro-credentials and our career and technical education work. So it really is a comprehensive credit for prior learning website. Um, we also had previously mentioned our work with academic regulations and just making sure that our CPL policies aligned with our institutional policies. We didn't want any contradictions there. And so we've worked to, for example, update um, standardized test scores to align with um, our state requirements. And then finally, on our digital infrastructure work, um, just making sure that our entire process has documentation. Prior to Dr. Pranita Hernandez coming into her role, there was no centralized hub for this content. So consequently, she has spent the past 6, 7 months just tracking down agreements, trying to find out why certain programs gave credit the way they did, or why our work with our local public school system involved the CTE work that it did, and why those agreements were not updated, or why students were not giving credit when they should have been given credit. So creating this consistent tracking system allows us to work directly with our registrar. It also allows us to work with our students so that there's a centralized contact for the work that we are doing. So with that, let me turn it back over to Sonia, who's going to talk a little bit about our key accomplishments, and then she's going to go into our future, where we're heading with this work.
So this makes me really excited because I've been here now for a year and a half. And at that time, when I came to work with Dr. Mills, who I'd never worked with before, I didn't think we'd ever have an office. So when I looked at the work and said, we need to like move this forward, and how is that going to happen? Um, First, I want to say is this academic master plan and the academic affairs master plan. I think I know that having Dr. Mills, having a senior leadership person in those meetings with that voice who actually supports and believes in credit for prior learning was extremely important. And so the integration of having credit for prior learning in these plans for the college, not at a low level, but at a very high level, was so important. And his voice in ensuring that it was there was critical. The same with the Office of Learning Recognition. So when I came on board, I had a different title. I was doing the work, and then he let me know that I think this past spring, late spring, that this office was going to be established to bring everything together. And that was very exciting. I think that was one of the biggest accomplishments, is really all this work, the framework, the pilots that we've done, they have created something. But not just that, we're here to support the students. The students now have an office that they can turn to. I'm working with an international student right now that has Cambridge International score exams. He has been sitting on those for a while, since the beginning of spring, because he said he did not know where to go, found this office, and by Friday he is going to have all those scores, and so he'll be able to get those credits. So the establishment of this office, the visibility, the website, I think is one of the greatest accomplishments. Really all the updates. The enhanced student support is them being able to not just call, but we have an email now, and there's a location. They can actually come, they've stopped by, and actually see somebody and ask questions. And then the institutional best practices. I think this collaboration with Cal really supported in me looking and saying, we actually need documented processes and somewhere where everything can be located, so that we never know what happens if I'm not here tomorrow, if Dr. Mills is not here tomorrow, that there is a location that everything is together that is institutional. It's not because a person did it or is then trying to track it down. So these outcomes to me have been very, very important. And so the greatest one was that of having that senior leadership support. And there's goals for the future, which I'm very excited about. The micro-credentialing, we're looking at what is called vertical stacking with national research, and that means these micro-credentials can be stacked to eventually become credit for prior learning. How do we do that? How do we also document it? And that right now is in the works. Having a central repository that not just myself or Dr. Mills, but somebody else that needs access to it. For example, if our office that collects all data needs information, that they'll be able to easily access it. And then an enhanced tracking system is for us to pull information and see. This is also for us to evaluate ourselves. How is our office doing? What are we awarding? Which maybe demographics, populations have we not really focused on and supported? And so this tracking system, I think, can provide us a lot of information, not just what we're awarding, how we're awarding, but really how do we help those students? And then a digital resource. My ultimate goal is to be able to have a comprehensive guide online where students can actually go in, put something in, and something else pops up. If they're looking at a national exam, pop that in and see, do we give credit for that? So when we're looking at the digital resources, that is what hopefully in the future we will have here. So, and then our next steps is Dr. Mills mentioned it, was the CT, Career and Technical Education. That is really looking at it and bringing it on board with all of the credit for prior learning. But there are different populations. How do we provide them also a guide, ensure that they're coming over? One of the first things we have done is partnered with our local school system. So we are working collaboratively where the forms are even online. The person from MCPS or the school system can come in while I'm also editing at the same time. So we're not always having to be face to face, but we're collaborating and working together on this. And then one of the future ones, hopefully for the spring, is really providing workshops. I've worked with a lot of faculty that are hearing. I've put out an article, but then how do we really train the staff, the faculty, and the advisors to really support the processes and gain that knowledge so that all students can be successful? So this is not just somebody knows about it, so they're sending them to our office, but really having this college-wide. And then launching the tracking system is really looking at how do we track? How can students also go in and look and ensure that this is seamless? And so this is also potential for potential students that want to come, that can go in and look and try to see what credits that we may be able to give them if they do come to MC. So one of the things that I do want to say with faculty, because I know it's come up in many workshops and many trainings with credit for prior learning, is the question on the faculty and the work that they're doing. So Montgomery College, and this goes back to having a champion. Montgomery College actually is paying the faculty, not just on the credit side, but on the non-credit side. So if faculty are doing that crosswalk work, they are being paid for that work. And then I actually track them, I do a timeline, and I work collaboratively with them. But when we learned that we needed to have, that was one of our hiccups was, oh no, we need the non-credit faculty while we're doing this, was ensuring also that that non-credit faculty was being paid equivalent to what our credit, so that they're working collaboratively, but it's also they're being paid the same. It's equitable across the board. And again, that has been because of the senior leadership that we have, and Dr. Mills really championing that and saying, you know what, that'll come from my office. We are going to pay the faculty. I know that's something that comes up repeatedly and will probably get asked, well, you guys are doing this work with the faculty, but it wasn't mentioned. So I just wanted to put that in.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Pernita Hernandez. So as we begin to close, we hope that you've taken away some things from this session that will help you implement your CPL program. We wanted to highlight just some of the 5 things that we think this session covered, and just that focus on engaging faculty and making sure that both credit and non-credit faculty are treated the same really falls into that partnership development. When we often think about partnerships, we maybe think about units or departments working together. But in this case, we view our credit and non-credit faculty as partners with us in this work, and that's essential. Making sure that your CPL program aligns with your overall college strategy, your academic affairs strategy, your student affairs strategy is critical for the success of this program. And Sonia's been very adamant in the focus on getting senior leadership involved. And I can tell you at Montgomery College, our cabinet is very supportive of the work that we've been doing, is very enthusiastic about the work that we've been doing. And we look for that to continue. So as we close, here are our names, contact information, our email addresses. Feel free to reach out. We would love to hear from you. We would love to engage in conversation about lessons you've learned, best practices that you've engaged in. Here is the link to our website. You can go to Montgomery College and just do a search for learning, recognition, and advancement. The page will come up. But feel free to reach out, and we hope to engage you in further conversations with this work on credit for prior learning, because we're all in this together. One last word from Dr. Pernita Hernandez. Anything you'd like to add as we wrap up?
So I just look forward to the next credit mobility, moving and transferring students that have CPL from the 2-year to 4 years. So hopefully that'll
Wonderful.
be us next year.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to engage in this conversation, and we look forward to hearing from you.